My name is Monk Rowe, and I'm very pleased to have Jonathan Scales with me today. Welcome, sir.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
I I always spend a little time like, all right, how am I going to introduce this musician? And I decided to use your introduction when from your TED talk, and you said to the audience, "I'm a musician, a composer, internationally touring performer, and band leader." And I was curious, you didn't say steel panist. Was that
Wow.
an oversight, or was there a reason for that?
You know, I think that maybe that was some type of psychological slip, but kind of deep at the same time because I feel like I always felt like Steel Pan happened to be the vehicle that I landed upon. So like as a composer, I started writing music when I was like 10 years old. And that was before I ever played the steel pan. So I think I resonate more with being a composer and someone who creates music in that way. And I think steel pan happens to be the vehicle that has like taken me to where I've gotten to. But I think down in the core of myself, I always consider myself a composer, like first and foremost. And I feel like, my music sounds like it does on any instrument. Like if I'm writing if it's a string quartet or it's a marimba piece or a wind ensemble piece or an orchestra piece, or I'm writing parts for other people in my band, it sounds like my voice. So I think that maybe it was a little of a philosophical slip, but I probably didn't mean to leave that out.
I
But
sometimes curious if you went to a cocktail party or something and no one really knew who you were, and someone asked you, "So what do you do?" And if you said, "Well, I'm a panist," then of course you'd be forced to like explain the whole thing. So maybe musician is.
exactly.
You answered
Yeah.
my question really I had in my head, and that was you were a musician before you took up the pans. So if you hadn't taken up the steel pans, what would your instrument be at this point?
Well, that's deep because with every little thing that happens in life, we never know which path it takes us down. So there's a chance that if I still played saxophone, which was my first instrument, maybe I wouldn't be doing music. There's no telling, you know? So it's hard to even make a parallel to say that like I would be doing this except it'd be saxophone because I don't know because the instrument has definitely informed the trajectory of my creativity.
Was there an aha moment that sent you to the pans?
It was more like stumbling upon it. Um, so I went to a school in North Carolina called Appalachian State University, and there's a steel band at the school that's been there since like 1984, started by Dr. Scott Meister. And when I got to college as a freshman, a lot of my friends were trying to pull me into trying to be in the steel band. They hold open auditions at the beginning of the semester. And you learn a couple tunes, they see how you jive with the band, how you vibe with the band, and then that's how you get into the ensemble. And as an incoming freshman, I had no interest in that because I was there to study composition. I'm here to be a composer. I'm not trying to join a new ensemble on day one of college. College is big. Like I just got here. And a friend of mine was like, "Hey, let me just take you to the pan yard," is where they call where the rehearsal area. Let me take you to the pan yard so you can just look at it. So she took me to the pan yard and I looked at the pans and I got to like take a mallet and tap a note. And that's when I was like, this is interesting. And that was just like a moment that kind of like sparked everything.
Nice. Were you struck by the didn't I didn't mean to do a little joke there. When you struck it, did the overtones make an impression on you?
Not consciously, you know, maybe there's some subconscious things that I'm not aware of, but I think that for me, as a saxophone player, so I actually went from saxophone to marching percussion, like drum line, like when I was a junior and senior in high school. So like I had this melodic sensibility, I guess, from saxophone, and then I had like decent hands from doing drumline stuff in high school and being inspired by like DCI and drum corps and that type of, that marching experience. Um so when it came to the pan, when I got to college, it kind of was a natural transition. And I kind of had this natural ability where as soon as I started playing, I had a really good sense of it and it felt good to me already. Even though I've been playing the saxophone since the sixth grade, it felt better to me. Like playing this instrument that just started last week, it just feels more natural to me. So I was able to actually advance further than I ever had on my original instrument. I was never, I never felt like I was a good saxophone player.
Well, I'm a saxophone player myself, and I had a path that led me more to the piano now, almost like just there's more work for it. And um, I got a kick out of your story on the TED Talk about your father and your insistence that you were going to have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And eventually, for our listeners, the story ended up you got it and you wouldn't give up. So I'm wondering if your father later on in was supportive of your path as you want. I want to be a musician. How did he feel about that?
Oh yeah. My parents were extremely supportive of me pursuing music, and this is a really big deal. And I didn't realize it was a big deal because that's how I grew up. My parents were supportive of me, and I didn't realize until I got to college and out of college where I talked to other people, where I realized other people's parents weren't supportive. That was blowing my mind. You know what I mean? Like when I was um, getting into music, uh, anytime I sparked interest in something, I think my parents knew that there was some musical thing in me. I started writing music when I was really young. So when I wanted to be in the band, they got me the saxophone. At one point, I wanted to play keyboard, and they got me an electronic keyboard. They got me a guitar, electric guitar. I wanted to be a rock star, and they bought me an electric guitar, and they bought me this music writing software called Cakewalk. Yeah, and that's how. So they were really very supportive of you know when I was a kid, like middle school, high school, of anything that I wanted to pursue in terms of like music. Any music that I saw at the store, oh, I want to buy this. I want to buy the CD. You know, they wouldn't say like, is this for adults? Are there cuss words in it? They would just like any music that I wanted to consume. They just let me freely consume music. And when I went to, when I decided to go to college, for music, it was very interesting because one Sunday night we went to the movies and we actually saw the remake of Planet of the Apes, right? With Mark Wahlberg and all that, right? This is the remake of Planet of the Apes. And the whole time I was so fascinated about the music. And I'm a high school senior and I don't know what I'm going to do after high school, but then I see this movie and I hear the music. And that was the first time that I was like, oh, I want to write music for movies. I want to be a composer. Mind you, I've been writing music since I was a kid, but now I'm a high school senior and I'm like, I want to be a composer. After seeing this movie, so much so that I waited around for the ending credits and I saw that it was Danny Elfman who wrote the music. And as a high school senior, I don't know Danny Elfman, I just don't, clearly he's huge. But I'm like, oh, Danny Elfman. In my mind, that was like a person wrote this. That just the fact that there was a name that was associated with the creation of the music of the film, my mind was blown and I was like, I want to do that. And so I told my parents, hey, I want to go to school to study composition. And they never said, are you sure about that? They never said, it's hard to make money as a composer. they just said, sounds good,
That's
you know?
that's fabulous. And they didn't say, okay, go for music, but why don't you get a teaching degree and you can fall back on it?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So they were very supportive in that regard, and I pursued that.
Did you
And
did you write as a kid? You said you were already composing. What were you composing on, and how did you physically save it, notate it, etc.?
okay, yeah. So to really start from the early beginnings that I count as the beginnings, when I was first writing music, it was nothing. It was just like an artist, it's like a little kid scribbling on a page. But I would put the 5 lines and I would just like write whatever notes. You know, see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
And I feel like most people wouldn't count that. But like I count it because in the same way we're like right now we're having a full conversation in English, and at some point we uttered our first tones out of our mouth. This is the same through line as that. We're on the same timeline as when we couldn't speak at all, right? So I consider the first time I wrote music, which was probably in the 6th grade, 5th grade, I just drew the lines. I knew what the staff looked like. I didn't know any of the rules. I didn't know what a key signature was. I just knew that you had sharps and flats on one side, and I would put whatever. I would put arbitrary notes. I would put arbitrary amounts of uh, notes within a measure, and it was just like I felt good doing that. You know, I liked doing it. Right now, I think when I got to maybe 6th grade or 7th grade, maybe that's when I started to like figure out, okay, these are the rhythms and the notes and start to like write ideas down on paper. But none of that stuff is saved. I don't know. That stuff doesn't exist anymore,
Yeah,
you know?
because I was wondering if
Um,
you could revisit any of that and use it as themes for your current
yeah,
trio.
I wish. Um, then I got pretty good at that though. Like by the time I was like in 8th grade or maybe like 10th grade, I was like writing on paper like actual music that I had created. But I didn't really take it that seriously in terms of like I didn't think I need to save this forever because this is a big moment. I just would write stuff. And then sometimes I would come up with stuff that never made it to the page. You know, like just an idea that I played on the instrument. That's the composition. It's just not written down. Like I thought of this melody or I came up with this little musical concept on a keyboard or on a saxophone or whatever. And and yeah, so
It's like an improvisation that can become a theme or a lick or a riff or something.
yeah. The way that I go about writing music is like a very methodical thing. And I don't even know if we should get into it in this session. It's kind of like its own thing. Um, but
I'd
yeah,
be happy to hear it.
that's definitely one way of going about things. You know, I definitely find just to dabble into it just slightly. I definitely find that when people are writing music, um, oftentimes people will say they start with a melody or they start with a chord progression or they start with a rhythm and they start with, you know, they sat down and they came up with something and then that sparked something. I always write music from like a reverse or like an inverted space in that. Like I first start with what is it that I want to express? You
Does
know what I'm
that
saying?
in?
We're making art. We're making art, you know?
Yeah,
I'm thinking, what is it that I want to express and what is it that I want the audience to feel and what is trying to be conveyed here? Now, that is going to dictate what the notes are, the chords are, the structures, blah, blah, blah. And I do feel like a lot of times, and this is not good or bad, this is not right or wrong, but I feel like a lot of people when they make music, they come up with ideas first and then they retroactively attach an emotion to that. You see what I'm saying?
I do. And
They retroactively attach an emotion to the thing that they randomly created, as opposed to what is it that I want? people to feel from this and what is the best combination of notes, rhythms, phrases, styles, articulations, dynamics, all of the stuff that I have in my toolbox to best bring to life the idea that I'm trying to convey. You see what I'm saying?
I think I do. And I'd like to see if you can tell me what you wanted the audience to get or feel out of this.
Oh man. So that's a steel pan a duet that I wrote when I was a senior in college called The Questions Unanswerable. And in that piece, I was trying to convey this like sense of wonder in I was trying to make a sense of wonder when it comes to like the acquisition of just like knowledge and understanding. Like kind of like being in outer space where like the further you go, the more you learn. And like seeing outer space and being like, there's so much to know, there's so much to learn. There's so much out there. And we're curious, like I'm curious of what's out there, and I'm curious of um, you know, how to just absorb all the knowledge and stuff that I can. And I think that piece was like this college kid about to go into the world and about to just step out and see what's out there. And, I think I was trying to build a sense of, yeah, just like the mystery of what's going to be the future. Like, where's this going? So, think about it. So if that's my idea going into it, imagine what my note choices are going to be.
Was it you playing twice,
No.
or was it a duet with another pianist?
Yeah, I was playing the bottom part. I was playing the like it's a two-part thing. I was playing the lower voice. My friend Joel Spencer was playing the that top steel pan part.
It reminds me your thoughts about the music reminds me of your TED talk again because you were talking about life like walking down a hallway and there's all these doors that can be opened and then dealing with what's behind them. That was a nice analogy. Um, did you write, is every note in that piece notated or is there
The piece
parts
that
where,
you just the piece that you just played.
yes,
Yeah, every piece, every note in there is notated. You want to see the score?
I'd love to.
Okay, hold it for 1 second.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're lucky on this one because um after a while I didn't really print a lot of my music because you know with my band everyone has to memorize everything. Um but yeah, like I literally have the physical score here of this.
Nice.
I so happen to have this because this was in my I wrote this in college, so this was part of my
Oh,
senior portfolio.
that's
So
interesting.
I happen to have the score of that.
Yeah.
And there, what's crazy about that is there are some students, however many years after 15, 16, 17 years after I wrote that, that brought that back to life.
Oh, that's a
And
great feeling.
it's pretty trippy, honestly. So there are YouTube videos of, amazing, you know, virtuosic college students playing that for their recitals or for different projects. And that's pretty trippy for me.
Is there a reason specifically that you change time signatures.
Yeah. So to me, people look at time signatures as like this thing that you can do, like, oh, 4/4 is normal, and you do. No, it's just another tool that can take help you take the shape of your idea. So it's never anytime I use a time signature, it's never about trying to do something different or like go out of the norm. It's about like, how do I express this concept right now? How do I get this feeling to come across? So like I'm thinking about composition kind of like an architect. So like when when you see a beautiful building in France or something, right? And everyone's taking pictures and like, oh my God, they're taking selfies and they're posting their pictures and they're recording the memories. They're looking at this beautiful structure, right? But the person who built the building is thinking about structural integrity. They're thinking about what type of bolts they're going to use, what type of, like beams and the measurements and all these things to put it all together. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
So like for me, I'm thinking about it in the same way. So like a time signature change for me is just like a tool that may or may not be used to bring to life an idea. Like all the different attributes, whether it's like the loudness of a sound or the length of a tone or the rhythm of a tone or where it lies in the chord or how it's using the melody. All of these are inherently just concepts. You see what I'm saying? Like none of it is music. You know what I'm saying? A chord is not music. A scale is not music. A rhythm is not music per se. Like these are all just tools that we can use in service to make the thing in the same way that like a hammer is not the architecture. You see what I'm saying? Like you use these tools to create this thing. So I look at it in the same way. So like in the same way where someone's in France looking at this beautiful building, not thinking they're just enjoying it, but someone had to think about every aspect of all these little details to make it actually functional. That's what I'm doing. People are enjoying my music for whatever reason, honestly. But then on my end, I just know as the creator of it that like, okay, in order to have the exact feeling that I'm trying to come across right now, I need to have a 9/8 measure right here. You see what I'm saying?
I do. And the average listener, um, non-musician listener, may not recognize that something has just shifted there a little bit.
And that doesn't matter.
Yeah,
You see what I'm saying? But in the same way, we're like a person who is like, you know, looking at some beautiful building, they don't understand how many layers of a foundation need to be built for them to be standing there to enjoy it. So it doesn't, so like that's why I feel like somehow, thankfully, it seems like my music has crossed over this boundary where like you don't have to be a technical person to enjoy it. So there's people who enjoy our music because they understand the technical aspects of what's happening. And there's people who know nothing about music who can sing along to the melodies and clap the thing because they're feeling something. And I think that like that's why I'm saying that it's important to think about what it is that you're trying to convey first. Because that's the part that's gonna like, if you're able to achieve that, that's the part that's gonna like, supersede any rhythm or any melody or any, you know, anything like that. So I feel like when I start with that as like and taking it back to architecture, if you see a beautiful building, whoever designed that, they made a blueprint. And they have to think, what do I want people to feel when they see this? And they started with that. They probably didn't just start making stuff and then be like, yeah, and then retroactively be like, you know what this means? It means this. They probably so much work and detail goes into like making a building, being an architect that like they have no choice but to like really take it, step by step and start from the beginning. And I think that as I look back on my own creative process, I think that like I'm approaching it like that.
Did you ever have a listener make a comment about one of your compositions that really surprised you? Like, wow, I hadn't even considered that.
Mm, yeah. I think that sometimes people will say things. I wish I could think of something right now. That'd be so cool. Um, but yeah, with instrumental music, it's all open to interpretation. So, you know, I do have people that come to me and tell me certain things where our music has struck them a certain way. And I always just take that like openly because it's open interpretation. But the craziest part for me is when someone hears my instrumental music and they come up and they express to me exactly what I was trying to convey. That's kind of like I get something from that. Like that's cool for me as a composer.
It's interesting. I had an interesting experience today. My wife and I had on the Spotify channel for like Baroque music. So we had, Vivaldi and Bach were playing. And then I came in here um, to dub that piece, Question Unanswerable. And
Yeah.
it's like, whoa, because the Baroque music, you mentioned architecture, and that's the way I feel about that music, is like it's almost architecture in sound. And then I put that piece on, and I connected with it from what I was hearing before.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. I mean, you had like
I mean,
this, the ostinato starting out, and then these melodies on top of it. It seemed like it connected quite well for me.
thank you. So like I grew up listening to Bach and Mozart. I wanted to do that when I was a kid. I was very fascinated with that. Um, but with anything else, I think that we take in just things that we like and it gets processed in our brains and then it comes out of ourselves in our own way, just like it does with language. Like we hear words when we're a baby, we hear words from our friends, we read books, we watch movies, we watch cartoons, we hear people say cuss words, and then we hear people speak in different contexts, whether they're in a business meeting or whether they're hanging out on the streets or something, or they're in the bar, and you hear all these different ways, and then it goes into us. And then whenever we try to express ourselves, we're using all of that data that we've taken in order to express ourselves now in the moment. So music is the same way. So you might hear aspects of my music that feel like I'm inspired by Bach or Mozart because I am. I'm inspired by Stravinsky. I'm also inspired by like, you know, Bela Fleck and Chick Corea and, Pat Metheny. But I'm also inspired by like Dr. Dre and Eminem and
Are you
Jay-Z.
are you inspired by other artistic genres other than music?
Oh, yes. Um, man, I honestly, I'm a big fan of John Cage. John Cage, the thinker of a composer, the philosopher. I'm a big fan of John Cage. So like a lot of my information, or not information, sorry, inspiration is coming from outside of music. Like, and what that is right now, I mean, I feel a little bit inarticulate about that right now because it's on the spot. But like, yeah, I think that life is very influential. Like my music, a lot of my music, it comes from real life. So
Maria Schneider said something that I just found was very illuminating. It was right near the end of our interview, and she just said, "Sometimes I tell my composition students, listen, you just have to live. You have to live. You have to go out and do different things, not just music things. Go out and live and
yes,
experience other things, or your music will suffer for not doing that."
yes, I actually just had this conversation with someone last night. about like practicing. So someone kind of like I was trying to say the same thing to them, and they were like, "Yeah, but how can you get to somewhere if you didn't practice?" And I'm like, "Yes, you're right." But also there's a thin fine line in the balance because, you know, I think they were talking about how if I practiced a lot or when I was younger, how consistent I was. And I would say that like, yeah, there were times where like I practiced a lot and there was times where like I didn't practice for weeks. And they were so blown away by that. But I had to explain to them, well, sure, I wasn't practicing those weeks, but I was like living life. I was being a human being. So imagine the whole point of music is self-expression. If you have stuff to express, think about what you can do with the music. If you actually have stuff in your life to actually express. So like, and I'll put you like this. This is going to be a really weird, vulnerable part of the interview. I can't believe this is being recorded. I'm saying this. You know, I know that like I'm not the greatest, most technically proficient steel pan player out there. I know that. Like I'm not the most technically proficient steel pan player in my neighborhood of Brooklyn. You see what I'm saying? But I happen to have worked on my voice as a composer and artist, and it's not necessarily about how much time I spent in a practice room. Like when someone hears my music, it's not because they I practiced a lot. It's because something connected in them and they resonate with my music. You see what I'm saying? Now, sure, I did have to practice in order to do that, but everything comes in balance. The music of mine that people really resonate with is the music oftentimes that I wrote when I was going through some crazy time or like I was channeling something into my music and they are picking up on that. And I would not have had those times if I was just practicing my instrument all day long. So it's a weird balance. But then you can't, the better you can express yourself with your instrument, the better you can express the stuff. So you have to practice. So it is like this balance. Um, and I study a lot of Buddhist philosophy, and that kind of reminds me of the concept called the middle way, you know, the middle way where it's like it's not too much of this, not too much of that. And it's like this ever adjusting, um, it's this ever adjusting thing that there's no one there's no right way or wrong way. In the same way where like if you're riding a bicycle, there's certain times where you have to grip the handlebars really hard in order to stay on. There's certain times where you have to be loose in order to stay on, depends on the terrain, depends on the angle, depends on all these things. So there's no one right way that you're supposed to hold the handles of a bike. You see what I'm saying? There's no right way of like how many hours am I supposed to practice? You know what I'm saying? Because there's somebody that could be practicing like 1,000 hours a day. And, you know, it might be great. Or it might be someone who just like a person who's feeling something deeply and comes up with this melody. And then like now everyone is deeply attached to what this person expressed because it resonated with them as a person. You see what I'm saying?
I do. That's some heady stuff. I appreciate you sharing it with me. Um, let's talk about the mechanics of the instrument a bit. Like most people, I don't quite understand the pans all that much. I had an interesting experience many years ago when I was part-time teaching in the Utica, New York public school system, and there was an elementary school band that had a pan orchestra. And I got the job of, teach some kids this thing. I had no idea what I was doing. But I remember going around looking at the pans and saying, okay, this one has these notes and this one has these notes. So my question to you is, how many pans do you really need to have all the notes at your disposal? And do you play
Okay.
custom made pans?
Okay. So in the world of in the steel pan world, it's kind of like an orchestra. How an orchestra, how you have violin, viola, cello, bass, each of those groupings of steel pan is a different setup. each of those setups include all of the notes chromatically on their own. So like if you play the top voice, which ironically is called the tenor pan, it's not the tenor voice, long story. We'll talk about that later. The top voice, which is like the soprano voice of the steel orchestra, is called the tenor pan. You're gonna have all of your notes in one pan chromatically, however many octaves that your pan is, right? That's like the violin of the steel orchestra. The instrument that I play is called, in the steel pan was called double seconds. That's just what they're called. The double seconds is like more of an alto voice. So in order to get all those notes, I need two pans. And so all of my notes chromatically are within those two instruments, right? Now, if you go a step below that, there's a pan called the guitar pan and the cello pan. And those pans, they do a lot more like the lower comping. And they're like literally like the cellos or like a guitar that's strumming. That's why they're called that, right? Because of their role in the steel orchestra. They have three pans with longer skirts that have like lower sounds, and they take that role. In between those three drums, they have all the chromatic notes, right? Now you go down all the way to the bottom. The bottom is you have six full-size oil barrels with only three notes each. And you need six of those to chromatically have all of the notes for the bass. So you really have the full range of an orchestra, and each instrument embodies like a whole spectrum of tones, just like you have like a violin, viola, cello, and bass.
Okay, that makes sense. I wonder if then, if on the tenor pans, if you're playing a descending chromatic line, for instance, is it a left, right to get those notes?
So each of these sets of pans have their own different, I don't want to say standardization, but like a rough general thing. So like tenor pans are set up in circle of fourths or circle of fifths. So if you have a C right here, then you have a G right beside it, then you have a D, then you have an A, then you have an E. So it's literally set up in a circle of fifths. If you go the other way, it'll be fourths.
Yes.
C, F, B flat. You know, the pans that I play, which are called the double seconds, they're actually set up in whole tone scales. So half of my notes are on one side. So for me, chromatically, it is left, right, but the patterns within that are not symmetrical because of the way that the notes are arranged within. It's not in any straight line or any spiral or anything like that on the double seconds. You know, the guitars and the cellos are set up in diminished. They have like within one drum, you have the diminished chords. You see what I'm saying?
Yes. So if
Yep.
you go to a gig that you have to travel airplane, you have to pack up your own pans and take them. Is that correct?
Yep.
You don't just show up and, your agent, your manager instructs the venue, well, here's what you have to
To have
provide for
backline
traffic.
steel pan, yeah.
How do you move
That
them
would be
around?
yeah, and so the thing about that, there's two things I gotta say. One is there is like enough standardization to where you can like if you're really good, you can get away with that. Like like for example, my colleagues, there's colleagues of mine for sure that would be comfortable just playing another pan that wasn't theirs. Um, and there could be slight differences because they're all handmade, right? But some of those slight differences you can adjust on the fly. Some of those slight differences are kind of big. Like if there's like a lower note that this set of double seconds doesn't have a low E, that means that all the notes in that pan are shifted around evenly. So now when I'm going to play a C, it's not in the same place that I'm used to playing a C. Now when I'm playing complicated music like mine, it's a lot of muscle memory is how I do this, how we do this. So I I very much need my instrument
I can imagine.
to play my show, I I very much need my instrument. You see what I'm saying?
I do. And when you're working on a composition, I'm guessing you are writing something that you know is playable on your pans.
Sometimes, sometimes it's too hard.
I know.
Sometimes,
Isn't that something like I wrote this, but don't ask me to play it?
yeah, well, I have stuff like that for sure. Yeah, or there's stuff that like I used to be able to play that like now it's like I don't even want to play that anymore because it's so hard. But then other people can play it because it's written down and they wanted the technical challenge to do that, you know. But yeah, if my instrument, I travel with my instrument everywhere, and if part of my instrument doesn't show up or the whole thing doesn't show up, then I'm just I'm just stuck. That actually happened the past tour that we did in Europe like a month ago. It happened in Latvia. And my instrument didn't show up in Latvia. Actually, only one of my pans showed up. There's nothing I can do with that. So I literally didn't get to play the show. And my bass player, my drummer, they performed without me. And it was explained to the crowd, like people bought tickets and everything. They came out. The club owner explained that British Airways has misplaced my instrument and that my rest of my band was going to play without me. And people stayed and everyone had a great time. And so we made the most of it.
Made the most of it. Yeah.
Yep.
Something you don't learn in college. You learn that when you're when you're gigging.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I
definitely.
was watching your documentary about being in the recording studio, and one thing I saw there was a clip of your drummer. Looked like it was a take, and I noticed he didn't have headphones on, and I was wondering if you're playing. Do you sometimes play live together without headphones, just like you're playing a concert?
So if it was from the studio and it was footage, it could be that he was just playing and that it wasn't being recorded right then for the album.
Okay.
More than like it could have been just like B-roll.
B-roll. Okay.
Yeah, you know, like the videographer was probably like in the room
Yeah.
and which probably wouldn't have happened if he was really recording. So whatever clip that was in particular, there's a chance that he wasn't actually tracking in that moment.
Okay.
And maybe he was just like going through some stuff or working on something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he did a good job with it because when he was done, he like he stuck his tongue out and was gasping.
Okay,
So
I think I know what you're talking about. That shot might have actually been from the other room. So I think that was a real take. So he might also have in-ear monitors too. They might have been like in his ears like that.
okay.
Yeah.
What makes for a good take? Why do you choose take three over take four? Or how many takes do you normally do?
Man, we're getting deep. So first of all, how do I choose a good take? I will say that like execution is a big part of it for me, in terms of the compositional execution. Because for me, I'm looking at the recording as like this timestamp of my composition. So like for me, I want to make sure that the song comes across first and foremost, or whatever the idea is. Like, so I'm gonna choose to take that better that best exemplifies the song in itself. And I go deeper than that. For example, like I am a person who takes advantage of the modern technology of editing in the studio. Because like for example, oftentimes I will have written a song the week before and I want to get the best representation of it for posterity. So if that means that like I happen to take a little bit of take one and a little bit of take two to make the perfect example that people will hear and listen to and will that we can build off of, I'm gonna do that. You see what I'm saying? Like I'm not like a traditionalist jazz snob in that way where it's the one take. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I do, and I've been
yeah.
surprised over the years to find certain things that were quote spliced together,
Oh yeah. And
which I never would have guessed. Yeah.
there's art to that. And I feel like you can't tell with my stuff either. You know, but part of that is because we play well together and we know how each other works. So like there's like a magic that can happens behind the scenes that allows me to create the recorded music in the way that I do as a producer.
Do you ever use a?
And also with that, it's important to say that like but then we play it live. So like that's really important. So no matter like whatever you do in the editing process for the betterment of the record, that's great. But for me, I always make sure that like, can we do this in real life? So I'm never gonna like write this insane thing that's impossible to play, chop it up and make it sound like we played it, and then try to, like we you see what I'm saying? Like if it's on the record, we have played it or can play it, but I definitely have a certain way that I like my albums to come across. And in order to do that, just like you edit a movie, it's the same. Just like you change the lighting on a scene, or you like, you chop off the scene 2 seconds before this camera goes to this. That's what creates the thing in the movie. That's what creates a certain moment. So like as a producer, like I do take full advantage of the fact that we have modern technology.
Um, the the recordings that I've heard, I was envisioning or wondering if you use a click track ever.
Oh yeah.
You do so if it's you use changing time signatures, but the click can remain constant through those.
Yeah, because it depends on what it is. Because if there's a lot of time signature changes, you can find the common denominator, and you can change the click track to the common denominator,
Oh, so
which
it's a
which
prepared click track. Is that correct?
well not necessarily,
Oh,
because if like for example, let's say we have a song where the tempo is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's in the 4/4 thing, right? And later after that, we're gonna do something that's in 7/8, like a dun 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 dun. You're not gonna want to use that quarter note click track because the 7/8 part is gonna be off. So then it would end up sounding like I'm gonna do a 4/4 part and then 7/8 part. So like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, dun 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 dun, which works. But if you double that click, then you can still treat the 4/4 part the same. It's just double amount of clicks. So you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, dun 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 dun. You know, or that might have not been the best example, but like you can change the you can sometimes you can double the amount of clicks that you hear in order for it to fit better over multiple types of time changes.
sure. Like you get a piece of written music and it says quarter note equals 124 BPMs. You could have that be an eighth note instead and go through those time changes, I guess. So how do your
Yeah. So
bandmates?
here's an example. So like,
Okay,
so if you're like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. See how that one ended up on the offbeat? If
yes.
you want that one to end up on a downbeat, you just double that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1. You know, like that's just so the click can just stay. If you find like a common denominator, then yeah. But there are times where there's parts where we can't use a click also. Like there's a part on a song called We Came Through the Storm. And in the studio, we played that without a click because there's a part that like speeds up gradually with the whole band over time. And we're like listening to each other in order for it to speed up. So there's no click track on that, for example.
How do your bandmates learn their parts? Do you do like demos for them, or they read the parts and then
It's a
memorize them?
combination. It's a combination of all that. So sometimes I'll make like a demo um, in my own bastardized way. Um, like I would make these drum tracks sometimes where I would just like pick up random household objects and like I'll play the kick drum part on like a pillow and record it, like hitting the stick with the pillow or hitting the pillow with a stick. And I would make the hi-hat sound by like tapping on like a cup or something. And I would make these demos for the drummer to like get the sense of, the style. And then but I would put it all together. So then, the bass player would hear like this like MIDI keyboard sound for like a bass idea, and they would hear the structure of the piece. But also they could see the time signatures, they can see the chords, they can see the melodies and the sections written out like on the page too.
Was it a challenge in the first number of years to be able to keep um, a group together because perhaps the band wasn't working enough that you could employ people full time?
Yeah, I mean, so January makes 19 years of me doing this with my band. And yeah, it's always a challenge. It's always a constant flow, but it's a whole process. So like you don't start at the beginning thinking about all of this stuff. You just start. And then as things go along, you have to morph and have to figure things out. So like I don't even know where to begin. That's a whole deep dive in itself of like career sustainability, you know? But I will say that like for me as a band leader, I've always recognized that the people that come into my sphere to help me to make this music, they are sacrificing their time and their energy and their creativity and stuff like that. So I always try to make sure everybody's taken care of. So since the beginning, like, I'm gonna do the best I can do for my players because they're really working like in service to bringing my ideas to life, which I'm forever grateful for. You see what I'm saying? So like that looks different in different stages of the career, but it's something to be always aware of because a lot of people at the beginning, they'll say, well, it's my music. And these people, all they're doing is playing the instruments and they're not having to do all this hard work. Yeah, well, guess what? You need those people. So you have to take care of your people.
I was
You see what
wondering,
I'm saying?
I do, and it's interesting because I've been able to speak with Howard Levy and Bela Fleck, and the three of you are playing an instrument that you've stretched the boundaries of, and not necessarily, the everyday, oh, saxophone, piano, trumpet. Do you believe that that distinction is a plus in some ways and a minus in others as far
Oh
as
yeah.
marketing?
Oh yes. Yes. It's a gift and a curse because the gift is, oh wow, like how is this person doing this on this instrument that I've never seen before? I'm instantly drawn into this. Like, this looks cool. What could this possibly be? So you do get that side of it, right? But then the curse side is there are people who they don't really know what we do because they never seen it. So there's festival promoters and organizers who they're like, yeah, we're gonna pass on this Jonathan Scales thing because they don't they don't know what it is. They don't understand. You see what I'm saying? So like in some way, so I'm able to have a sustainable career because we there's enough people who like they understand what we do enough to allow us to have opportunities. However, there's still a lot of like doors that are just slammed in our face that we can't get to the other side of because they just don't grasp the concepts of what we're doing because it's not easily compared to something else. It's not, you can't be like, oh yeah, it's kind of like this band. And it's kind of like, and also they don't know about the steel pan. So like there's some people who like, yeah, the steel pan is a cool instrument, but like, I don't know if I want that at my event, not knowing that like I'm playing it as an instrument. Like it's not about the instrument, it's about the self-expression of what we're trying to play as a unit and as a composer and as musicians, right? So the instrument does get pigeonholed sometimes where there's opportunities that don't come about because someone doesn't even give it the time of day.
Have you
You see
had?
what I'm saying?
I do. Yes, I understand that. And have you had people who've considered booking you, but say, "Listen, I like it, but can't you bring a fourth player, like I heard on one of your records?"
Uh, I would say at this point, that's not really a conversation that comes up just
Okay.
because, like, I think that, like, at this point, anyone who gets to that far in the conversation of like trying to book us knows what they're getting into.
Okay.
And then before that, either someone knows what they're getting into or they don't know what they're getting into. And if they don't know what they're getting into, sometimes they won't even, we're not even in the conversation at all. So it's been a slow process over time. So I would I would say it's less of a thing where people are like, yeah, well, if you did this, then maybe we can, uh, and it's more along the lines of like people don't, it's like seeing is believing or something. So sometimes people have to see it before they can like connect to it and like understand. For example, like, we did the NPR Tiny Desk thing and we got on NPR Tiny Desk because one of the producers saw us in real life. One of the producers of Tiny Desk happened to be in the room where we performed somewhere, and they were in the crowd and they saw us. It's not because we submitted an application. You see what I'm saying? Because my band on application looks like, what is this? It doesn't make sense. So any success that we've come across is because someone saw us and was curious and wants to know more and then brought us in. So we have to work almost like twice as hard to have a full sustainable career to find all of these places that want to that like understand enough for us to work with them and they are able to show the mutual respect and help promote the show together and so it's taken a long time.
How about the fact that if you look at your promo and um, you see, I'll just read this: a contemporary jazz fusion album that encompasses everything from funk to bluegrass to blues to classical Indian music. Again, is that a plus? I mean, you would think it would be, but maybe some people, well, I just want jazz.
Yeah, okay, so that's the thing. Listen, if you want jazz, then go get that. That's not what this is. Period. Now that means that we lose opportunity because this venue wants traditional jazz, then we're not playing there because that's not a space for us. You see what I'm saying? Which means that like the whole point of, like I said from the beginning, the whole point of music, the self-expression thing, it just so happens that my self-expression and the way that my band plays is this amalgamation of all of this stuff. That's literally what it is. So like if there's a place or promoter or something that doesn't rock with that, then that's okay
Yeah.
because that's not where we're supposed to be. And it's taken many years to for even me to be just philosophically sound with the fact that that's how it is because there was a time where because these doors were shut to us, that affects the livelihood. That affects like, the fewer places you can play and the less opportunities you have, the less likely it is that you make a sustainable living. You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Now, I think for me and my band and the way that we operate, it's way more important to us to just be ourselves than it is to, well, if we do this, then now these people will like us, and now we're getting to this thing. Then we're not being genuine, you know? Like there's a band where I'm not gonna name the names. I'm not gonna name the names of this band, but it's a pretty big band, and they were like, man, we'd love to take you guys on the road as an opener. Like you'd be great. It'd be great to like take you guys on the road as an opener, but I just feel like people don't really dance to your music like that. Your music's not danceable. Like it's not just like hard hitting dance music the whole time. And that was the reason that they decided to not take us on the road, right? Now, there's two things I can do with that. I can adapt my music to be like this dance hit thing the whole time, and now I've gained this opportunity. Or I can just be myself and keep getting the most genuine people who actually like what I do. That's way more fulfilling.
Yeah, I'll pick door number two.
Yes, and then on top of that, there's another band, and I will name this band. There's like a prog metal band called Animals as Leaders. And they took us on the road because they love us and what we do and who we are. So they took us on the road. Um, and we were playing for these like progressive metal, like a room of 1,000+ people every night who are just there ready to just process music and are just really into like progressive stuff. And this band, Animals Leaders, allowed us to do our thing as an opener, as we are. And this audience ate it up and they loved us and they showed us so much love with just us being ourselves. And the headliners, Animals Leaders, they loved that we were just being ourselves. Nothing about them said, hey, we like you guys, but can you be more metal? We love you guys, but can you be more like this or like that? No, they said, man, you guys have 50 minutes to open the show. Do whatever, be yourselves. Like we're bringing you here because we love you guys. So this prog metal band, Animals Leaders, brought us on the road like that. And that was a big deal for me. That happened 2 years ago. That's a big deal for me. I still talk about it because it's very rare for someone to like take my like for like an artist that has like a platform to like showcase my work and the band and the work of my band in such a way that's like, hey, play in front of these thousands of people every night. Do your thing right before we play because we want you guys to succeed and we love what you guys do so much. I'd rather much that scenario than the scenario where the people were like, hey, we love your band, but we're not gonna take you on the road because we need to be more danceable. And that's the other thing about it. I realized quickly that danceable is one attribute of what music can be. There are times in our music where people are dancing. There's times where people are just like looking at us like, how are they doing that? And it's like going to like the circus or something. Like you go to the circus or you go to like some Cirque du Soleil or something, and you see people doing acrobatics, and it's mind blowing. And you're walking away with the awe and the wonder of having seen that. Sometimes that's happening when you watch like how my band operates and stuff like that. And I realized that there's also a value in that too. It's not just about drink sales for the venue.
Yeah.
You see what
I,
I'm saying?
I did. I played in a band once that was so much fun to watch that the club owner was complaining because people were just sitting there watching. They weren't ordering any booze.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm going to wrap this up. This has been fascinating. Just with returning to where we started, you're going down this hallway from your TED talk, and there's doorways. There's doors to be opened. Do you anticipate any more doors that you could come across now that you've done this for 19 years? What might be a door to open and pursue?
Okay, so there's a couple ways to answer that question. There's the right way, which is just to say something that I hope will happen or something, right? But then there's the other way where you realize that, like, yes, I've been doing this for 19 years, but like I feel like this is still the beginning for me. Like when I think about the trajectory of like what it means to be a composer and artist in the way that I am, like I think about like Herbie Hancock, who's still touring, and Chick Corea, who was still touring, until he passed. You know what I mean? I think about like people like that, and I see, man, I'm right now, even though I've been doing it for 19 years, I'm 41. This is the oldest I've ever been, so I can feel old, but like I can also see, man, there's no way I can tell where things are going to be in 20 years, let alone 10 years, let alone 5 years at this trajectory. So, like, honestly, I do feel like I'm at a point where, like, yes, I have reached some level of something, whatever you want to call it in the abstract world. I've reached this thing, right? But I know that there's more to go. And yeah, I know there's more to go. And I'm excited about it just as I was when I first graduated from college. And one example of that is already, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to announce this yet, but I will. In the fall of 2027, we're actually doing um, something with a full symphony orchestra plus my band. And that's in the works. So like there's things like that that I would have never that I would have always loved to do, but like now it's like on the schedule.
That's going to be a memorable moment when that orchestra winds up and plays your music.
I agree.
Yeah.
So like that's what I mean. Like who knows what's gonna happen after that? Who knows where things are going? So like I said, I'm a big uh studier of like philosophy and things like that. And right now, I think that my job is just to be present and to just make the most out of everything that's happening just like right in front of me, not worry too much about the past, not worry too much about the future, not worry too much about like all the work that took to get here, and not worry about the people who aren't allowing us to go through those doors. Like I could name so many names of venues and festivals and things like that that like won't give us the time of day. That's the thing that people don't understand still is they see the stuff that we're doing and they're not understanding the things that the roadblocks that are still there for us because right now is like it's important to kind of go where the love is. That's way more important than trying to break through this door and get to this venue or this festival. You know what I'm saying? Like I've been able to make a sustainable career from people who genuinely love what we do and they come out to see us. That's not attached to any venue or any festival.
All
We
right.
we we, we built that. So like I think right now is the time where like, man, we're leaning into that. Like there are a lot of my colleagues are part of events and festivals that like we aren't even in the conversation for. And although those would be great, I'm also realizing that that doesn't stop us from continuing with our journey as a band and really leaning into the people who love us. So I thank you for including me in this series. And I don't take it lightly. It's a big deal for
Big
me.
deal
So
for me
thank you.
too. I been a fabulous conversation. I think you could also add to your list of the things you are like a motivational speaker.
That's interesting that you say that because I'm working, I'm kind of starting to write a book. I'm in the early process of writing a book about composition, but I want it to double as a philosophy book. So my goal right now, I want to write a book that if you are studying music composition, you can read it and you can glean things from it that will help you and open your mind with your own writing process. But if you know nothing about music, then you can walk away with some type of philosophy. That's my goal. And it's in the very beginning stages of that. But maybe it might take me a few years to actually pull that off. But like it's on my mind.
Right. Another doorway.
That's right.
All right. I'll pause our recording and we'll say our goodbyes. Thank you very much.
All right.